Let me tell you something. As a aspiring actress and the things that Meghan will do for fame,
To me, it feels like quite a significant moment. Because, of course, there is so much about Meghan Markle's life.
we only can imagine what this woman was up to well before she was even on Suits.
The Meghan Markle Yacht Girl claims simply will not go away. This week described Meghan Markle as previously having been a, quote, yacht girl.
For years, certain questions about Meghan Markle were never allowed into the room. Not debated, not investigated, not even acknowledged. But this week, that silence broke. And once a story crosses into the mainstream, you don't control it anymore. If you want more deep dives into royal stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Royal Archives, because some of these stories are only just beginning to unfold. Because what just happened isn't about a rumor suddenly appearing. It's about a rumor that's been around for years, suddenly being acknowledged in places that used to ignore it completely. And that shift, that's where things start to get uncomfortable.
About Meghan that we all have some evidence of. I mean, what is she doing on the yacht?
For a long time, discussions about Meghan Markle followed a very clear pattern. On one side, mainstream media coverage, carefully curated, tightly controlled. I'm often focused on official narratives. On the other, online conversations, unfiltered, speculative, sometimes messy but persistent. And no matter how often certain claims were dismissed or ignored, they never actually disappeared. They just stayed in the background.
No one in the mainstream media has been brave enough to go there. Well, that has just changed.
Waiting. Now, one of the most controversial of those claims, often referred to online as the yacht girl rumor, has circulated for years. To be clear, this claim is unverified and there is no confirmed evidence supporting it. But that's not what makes this moment different. What makes it different is that for the first time, voices connected to established media are no longer pretending those conversations don't exist. They're not confirming them, they're not endorsing them, but they're acknowledging them. And that alone changes everything. Because here's how media usually works. If something is completely baseless,
Julie Burchill, who I think is one of the most fabulous and brave and unfiltered and hilarious columnists in all of the United Kingdom,
it gets ignored. Silence is the strategy. No oxygen, no amplification. But when a topic starts being mentioned, even cautiously, it raises a different kind of question. Why now? And this is where the story takes a turn, because critics have long argued that Meghan Markle's public narrative has been tightly managed, interviews that follow familiar themes, stories that seem carefully structured, a consistent framing of events, repeated across platforms. Again, that's interpretation, not fact. But it's a perception that exists.
I've got them somewhere. God knows where now. I've got them on
so you've
some
seen
old...
Nudie Rudy Meghan too.
I've seen...
And when that perception meets unresolved questions from the past, it creates tension. Because if everything is clear, why do the same questions keep coming back? Now, add another layer to this in recent years. And Meghan and Prince Harry have signed major media deals, most notably with Netflix, positioning themselves as storytellers, narrative builders, people who want to control how their story is told. But at the same time, there have been public criticisms.
Sussex's perceived pattern, that must have been a lawyer's note, because it's a pattern of selling repackaged versions of the same story about their exit from royal life.
Suggestions that their projects rely heavily on revisiting the same core narrative, reframing it, expanding it, repackaging it. And that contradiction hasn't gone unnoticed, because here's the contradiction people keep pointing out: rejecting the system, while continuing to benefit from it. And now, at the exact moment when that narrative is being questioned more openly, older rumors are resurfacing. Not proven, not confirmed, but suddenly harder to ignore.
I want to ask Meghan Markle about her yacht girl past. To me, it feels like quite a significant moment.
This week, something subtle but significant happened. and a well-known media figure connected to one of the UK's oldest publications publicly referenced these long circulating questions, not as fact, but as something worth asking about. And when an institution with that level of history and credibility even touches a topic like that, it signals a shift. Because once established media opens the door, even slightly, you can't close it again.
Bringing the Meghan Markle yacht girl questions, at least. I mean, she has been careful.
Now, there's another idea that continues to circulate. The belief, again, unproven, that parts of Meghan's early life and career may have been selectively presented, that certain details are emphasized, while others are less visible. There's no verified evidence of deliberate scrubbing, but the perception itself has gained traction in online discussions. And perception in the media world can be just as powerful as fact. So the real question becomes, is this about a rumor or is it about control? Because Meghan Markle's entire public identity has been built on narrative, on storytelling, on presenting a version of events that resonates. But now, that narrative is being challenged, not just by online voices.
The former lawyer for the late Virginia Giuffre wanted Meghan Markle to give a deposition on behalf of Virginia Giuffre to give evidence in court about what she knew in regards to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's behavior.
But by the very system that once helped protect it. And that's what makes this moment different. This isn't just noise anymore, it's movement from the outside into the center. Because once a story reaches that level, it doesn't fade, it evolves. And now the question isn't whether these claims are true, it's why they're suddenly being allowed into the conversation at all. Because what happens next could change the way this entire story is seen.
It's something that we continue to talk about because there is something there that we need to find the missing pieces to.
Because when a conversation shifts like this, it's never random. There's always a trigger. And in this case, many point to one moment. A mainstream media voice, Julie Burchill, openly referencing questions that, until recently, were considered completely off limits. Now again, she didn't present anything as fact. She didn't claim proof. But she did something arguably more powerful. She asked the question out loud. And when someone with that level of visibility does that, it legitimizes the discussion itself. Because for years, the unspoken rule was simple. Don't go there, not in print, not on record, not in any way that could be taken seriously. But now, that line has been crossed.
The key line there, and the line that really, really interested me, was not a question about whether she was a yacht girl.
Carefully, indirectly, but unmistakably. And this is where things become less about Meghan Markle as an individual, and more about how narratives are controlled and how they break, because every public figure operates within a kind of invisible agreement with the media. It's the access in exchange for boundaries, coverage in exchange for limits, and as long as both sides play their roles.
In terms of how many yachts she was a guest on before she met Prince Harry.
The system holds, but what happens when that balance shifts? Because in recent months, there have been subtle signs of tension, reports of strained relationships, speculation about shifting alliances, moments where media coverage feels less protective than before. Nothing definitive, nothing confirmed, but enough for people to start noticing a pattern. And when protection fades, what fills the gap? Now consider the timing, at the same moment that certain narratives are being questioned.
Why are there people in Meghan's circle, social circle, that are in the same social circle as Andrew?
There are also reports of cooling relationships with major platforms. Again, public reporting, not speculation. Discussions about expectations, about performance, about whether the original vision is still aligned. And when those kinds of relationships change, so does the tone of coverage. Because media isn't just about storytelling, it's about leverage. And this is where the situation becomes more complex. For years, Meghan and Harry positioned themselves as independent voices, breaking away, reclaiming control, telling their story on their terms. But now, that same strategy may be creating unintended consequences. Because when you build your brand on narrative control, any challenge to that narrative feels amplified. And suddenly, the question isn't just what's being said, it's why it's being said now.
One thing that struck me about this article is about how they were going to try to show Meghan as someone who has been wrong. Like talking about what happened to her and making it all about her with these women. And I just find Meghan she's a con artist.
Public perception doesn't change all at once. It shifts gradually. A headline here, a comment there, a tone that feels slightly different than before. Until one day, the conversation sounds completely different. And that's where we are now. It's because this moment isn't about proving a rumor. It's about something bigger. The loss of narrative control. For years, the story was tightly framed, carefully managed, consistently reinforced.
But just simply stating as a fact and then asking, was it double figures or triple?
But now, cracks are starting to show. Not because of one article, not because of one comment, but because multiple threads are beginning to converge. And when that happens, the narrative stops being controlled. It becomes contested. And that's the moment every public figure tries to avoid. When the story is no longer yours alone, when other voices start shaping it, questioning it, reframing it. Now, here's the truth. There is still no verified evidence supporting the most controversial claims. And that distinction matters, because speculation is not fact, and discussion is not proof. But that doesn't mean this moment isn't significant. Because what we're witnessing isn't about confirming the past, it's about changing the present. The boundaries of what can be discussed have shifted. And once that happens, there's no clear way back, because stories like this don't end with one article. They evolve, they expand, they take on new dimensions as more voices enter the conversation. And the real impact isn't just what's said, it's what people start paying attention to. So the real question isn't whether this story will continue, it's how far it will go. And if you want to follow every shift, every twist, and every moment that changes the narrative, make sure you're subscribed to Royal Archives, because some stories don't just unfold, they unravel,